On the distant Earth-like planet named KOI-442, Rhea awakens in her disarrayed spaceship trying to remember what actually happened to her other crew members. She gets up having a wound on her forehead, finding everything in disarray in the entire spaceship. The spaceship's AI alerts her to an abnormal activity in the ship, and shortly after, she finds Kevin's dead body stained with blood. She approaches him, discovering a knife stabbed in his abdomen. A few steps ahead, she comes across the dead body of another crew member. Meanwhile, the spaceship's AI advises Rhea to reboot the system to activate the standby power. Afterward, she comes out of the spaceship finding a blue environment filled with dense smoke on this planet. She calls out for anyone who might respond to her, but no one replies from the other end. However, Rhea then discovers something standing in the dense smoke that imitates her movements, but the very next moment, the mystic entity vanishes into thin air. Rhea questions where she is but can't find a satisfactory answer. She looks up at the sky only to see a mesmerizing light that leaves her wondering. She finds it hard to breathe in the poisonous environment and starts heading back to the spaceship before passing out and barely manages to get inside the spaceship. She begins to lose her consciousness while experiencing visions of her crew members getting killed by an unknown assailant. Afterward, the movie shifts back in time when everything was fine on the spaceship and all the crew members including Rhea, Kevin, Clark, Audie and Davis were buzzing to explore the unknown planet. Davis brings food to the table which everyone starts eating in memory of Brian, another crew member who was in orbit at this time. Kevin explains that the atmosphere on this planet is almost breathable. Then, Rhea says that they will not mess up this time, and after this, the movie shifts back to the present, showing Rhea looking for answers to her troubling questions. She applies a patch to her neck, relieving herself. She comes into Kevin's chamber, who is the captain of this team, and finds his diary, containing all the important data about the mission and the spaceship. The spaceship's AI informs her about someone's presence in Zone 1, alerting her. She arrives at Zone 1 and finds a man behind the door and quickly pulls out a knife to protect herself against any imminent danger. She attacks and knocks the man down, asking him who he is. The man takes off his helmet, revealing himself as Brian, a member of their crew. He reveals that she sent him a distress call, stating, Clark had some sort of psychotic break and turned on the team. He asks her if Clark is the one that did this to her. However, Rhea can't remember anything and explains that when she woke up, everything had already happened. Brian approaches dead Kevin, asking Rhea if she remembers anything, but she replies that all she recalls is a woman attacking her and other crew members. Brian asserts that it must have been Clark and asks Rhea if she has any idea where Clark might be. Rhea replies that no one was left alive when she woke up and that's all she remembers. She adds that she doesn't know who and where she is. Brian asks her if she remembers Earth, then she shakes her head, indicating her denial. Afterward, Brian runs a test on her, using a medbot machine, while telling her that they were on their Mission 7, Vessel F, during which they discovered this KOI-442 planet, or Ash, their new home. The high-tech machine treats her wound without making her feel pain. Afterward, Brian leaves, asking Rhea to take a rest. At night, Rhea hears a noise coming from the slightly open door. So she gets up, locking the door completely, but shortly after she finds a ghost standing outside the door. The very next moment, no one is there. She gets outside the ship to dispose of dead bodies of her crew members after wearing a safety suit specially designed for space missions, while Brian remains in the spaceship. Rhea tells Brian that she doesn't think that Clark may be alive. However, if she managed to stay alive, she would have been infected by something out there. Afterward, she gets back to the ship, and picks up the scissors, experiencing a vision of Clark stabbing Audie. She quickly comes into her chamber and applies another patch to her neck, finding relief. Outside the ship, there happens to be a sandstorm on KOI-442 planet, witnessed by Rhea and Brian. Rhea explains to Brian that she has started to remember things, but just then, the emergency alarm goes off and the AI informs them that the oxygen level dropping due to a hull breach, prompting Rhea and Brian to investigate, and shortly after they find the damaged part of the spaceship. Rhea enters the hole to repair it from the inside and begins to repair it while experiencing flashbacks. Brian theorizes that Clark may have come into contact with some kind of pathogens that triggered some sort of psychotic break, and this infection forced her to kill her companion crew members. Brian suggests that they must leave this planet as soon as possible because the spaceship is running low on oxygen and a good amount of oxygen has already been wasted and they don't know if Clark is even alive out there. Rhea shows her disagreement and doesn't want to leave this planet until she finds Clark and discovers what actually caused this massacre on the ship. However, Brian persuades her, promising they will get to the bottom of all this. In her dream, Rhea sees Kevin and herself on this planet standing around a well-like machine that creates high-pitched sound. Shortly after, she finds him getting killed in her dreams, which forces her to wake up from her nightmare. She finds the same drone that she saw in her dreams, placed on the shelf. She turns on the drone and begins to see the footage. In the footage, she discovers her entire team led by Captain Kevin, who tells his team that the atmosphere of this planet is almost similar to Earth's atmosphere but lacks life. Afterward, they all begin to have fun on this planet. Moments later, they find the exact spot that Brian pinpointed the emission to. They go past the rocks and quickly find the source of emission, meaning the whole atmosphere is manufactured. Davis throws a stone into the hole to gauge its depth, but soon after, the same stone comes back, destroying Davis's helmet, leading to his death and causing a mess among the crew members. Shortly after, all the holes present on the planet begin to erupt with fire and smoke. Now, Rhea comes to learn what actually happened that day to the entire team. Brian comes to Rhea, who confronts him. She tells him that he knew everything but didn't tell her anything on purpose. Brian reveals that she went on a mission, but she quickly went dark, including the entire station. At that precise moment, Rhea regains her lost memory, confessing it is her who killed everyone on the station, but she doesn't know why she did it, and if they left the station, they will never learn it. Rhea explains that when these patches fade, she starts having more memories and can remember everything. So she asks Brian to let her spend more time on the station until she regains her full memory, but he doesn't allow it and hurries to leave the planet as he doesn't believe her. He further says, "I trust you, but I don't trust the person that lives inside you, and I don't know who you would become." Moreover, what we have uncovered here is proof of alien intelligence somewhere out there. Rhea doesn't say anything and leaves. Moments later, Brian approaches her and asks her if she is ready to leave the planet. Rhea gives her consent, and soon after Brian applies a patch to her neck before leaving. Not long after, Rhea begins to experience visions and sees evil Audie attacking a woman, while the woman tries to defend herself from him and moments later, manages to stab Audie with a pair of scissors, saving herself. Rhea regains consciousness and heads towards Brian but encounters an infected crew member. She quickly hides in the station's basement with a gun, and after covering some distance, she finds Brian lying dead. She steps back in fear, making her back to exit, but bumps into Clark and attacks her with a flare gun. Clark thrashes her, but Rhea gains the upper hand in the struggle and kills her by streaming water into her helmet. Afterward, Rhea then uses Medbot to test Clark, finding no infection inside her body. This leaves her stunned, realizing she killed an unaffected crew member. The spaceship's AI informs her about the opening of the orbital lineup window, meaning she is ready to leave the planet. She comes out of the station, heading towards the lander. She gets inside the lander and tries to start it, but it breaks down, causing her to feel disappointed. She applies another patch to the neck and shortly after, runs a test on Brian's dead body, finding no infection in his body, and starts beating herself up. Moments later, the AI announces an abnormal activity in the lander, alerting her. Rhea grabs her gun and goes to investigate it, and shortly after, she encounters Brian in the corridor, calling him the infection, whereas Brian claims to be her part. Afterward, he put his fingers into her head, showing Kevin and Davis with moving parasites in the spaceship. The parasite takes over the entire ship in no time. Meanwhile, Rhea arrives and demands a sample, but just then, Brian knocks on the door and Rhea lets him in. Kevin reveals that the parasite attached itself to the mainframe of the station and has been waiting for the right moment to shut them down. Audie asks Brian when the next lineup is. Brian replies, it is in the next 13 hours, but Rhea shows her disagreement as she doesn't want to leave the planet. Audie firmly says that they need to leave the planet before it spreads. Rhea begins studying the parasite and does a comprehensive study, discovering its quality of self-replication. Just then, Audie shows up in the lab, interrupting her study. The parasite breaks the container and lunges onto Audie's body, and shortly after, it gets into his body through the nostrils. Moments later, it takes over him thoroughly, causing him to attack Rhea. Now, it is revealed that it was no other than Rhea who killed infected Audie to defend herself. Kevin and Clark also arrive for her aid, but Audie gets back to life and begins to beat Kevin, and shortly after, the parasite leaves Audie's body and enters Kevin's body through his ear, controlling him. Infected Kevin knocks down Rhea and is ready to infect her as well, but meanwhile, Clark comes out of nowhere knocking down Kevin. Soon, Kevin overpowers her and begins to maul her, while Brian witnesses this. Afterward, Kevin turns his attention to Brian and brutally kills him. Rhea changes Clark's damaged helmet and sends her out of the station to protect her from Kevin, while Rhea herself remains on the station. Kevin looks for her while Rhea holds a knife to defend herself and shortly after stabs him in the chest. The parasite then leaves Kevin and enters Rhea through a wound on her head, revealing she had been under the influence of the parasite from the very beginning. Rhea swallows a potassium cyanide pill to kill the parasite, which causes her to faint. Now, we see the creature inside Rhea delivering its message: "This is our planet, our investment, we will not let you snatch it from us." Moments later, Rhea regains consciousness, peeling off patches from her neck, and as soon as she removes them, Brian vanishes instantly, revealing that she had been controlled by the parasite through the patches and that Brian had never truly existed after his death. Afterward, she uses the Medbot machine to run a test on herself, discovering the presence of a parasite inside her body. Thus, she manually commands the machine to excise it, which the machine successfully does. In the background, the parasite possesses Brian's dead body, and soon after, he attacks Rhea. However, Rhea fights back, stabbing Brian in the head, which buys her time to flee. The grotesque Brian pursues her, attempting to infect her, but Rhea sets it on fire with her flare gun. After getting rid of Brian, she heads back to the lander, manages to start it, and subsequently flies out of the ominous planet, and this marks the end of this movie.